This weekend at the Miyagi CS over in Japan, Bandai revealed 4 more of the OP13 leaders. We've got Roger, we've got all of the brothers, and we've got Bonney. There's only one missing now. In this video, I'm going to be going over my initial thoughts after about a day of stewing on these leaders, and I've also got deck lists for all of them, way too early. Now first, big ups to Kadi Kaizoku for the use of his deck builder, and I want to start off with the new King of the Pirates leader. We've got Roger. We knew from a long time ago this was going to be a red-purple 7k leader. What no one would really expected was this is going to have 5 life, which is utterly bananas. This guy has the Roger Pirates and King of the Pirates types, and he has some weird effects that some people have been getting misconstrued on. So the first effect is where all the confusion is coming in. If you have any Don cards on your field, give 1 Don card that would be added during your Don phase to your leader. So this means on your 3 Don turn, for example, when you draw from 1 to 3, one of those 2 Dons that you draw goes directly onto Roger, and the other one will go into your cost area. This means that effectively you're playing sort of a Don behind, but it is always there. It just has to go on your leader, so it does make your curve a little awkward. And where the confusion is coming in is people think that you can never play 10 costs because of this effect, and that's simply not correct. So you can never play 10 costs on curve with this effect, unless you set up some weird shenanigans with like a Don minus and a kid ramp. But on 10, when you draw up to 10, you're going to have 1 Don on your leader and 9 in your cost area. However, assuming there's no Don minus effect between your 10 Don turn and your next 10 Don turn, on that second 10 Don turn, because you're no longer drawing Don from your Don deck during your Don phase, all of those 10 will untap in your cost area. So on your second 10 Don turn, you can play 10 costs like, for example, the 10 cost Roger, or a 10 cost Shanks. So I hope that clears up the misconception, because a lot of people have been sort of misunderstanding this leader effect. And I mean, it's a totally new type of effect. So I can understand how people might get confused by this, but hopefully this clears it up. And his second effect is if you have 9 or less Don on the field, he has minus 2000 power. So this is 2 downsides, which I mean is very warranted given that this is a 5 life 7k leader, right? 7k is crazy. So obviously your main strategy with this deck is you're going to need to get to 10 as soon as possible. And one thing that's going to make this a little awkward is your usual ramp tools don't really work like they do in other ramp decks, like Blue-Purple Luffy. For example, I mean, Zoro Jiro is immediately off the table because you have to have 3 or less life for him to do anything. And we're starting at 5, so that's simply not going to work. But on your 4 Don turn, normally you'd be slamming Bonclay all day, you'd be thrilled to slam Bonclay. But you can't, because one of the Dons on your 4 Don turn is on your leader. So you've only got 3. So the earliest you can play Bonclay is your 5 Don turn. And both that being the case and not having access to Zoro Jiro means that your first ramp is going to be really hard to come by, especially going first. There's nothing you can do on 3 for 2 Don to ramp. However, if you go second, you can play cards like It's to Die For, and you can also sort of set up this Bellamy for later. He's a 3-4 blocker that on block you can rest 2 Don, and you ramp 1 as active. So this kind of works that if you play this on 4, then on your 6 Don turn, you have 1 on your leader, you have 4 in your cost area. You can use 4 of them for Mr. 2, so you'll have 2 active Don in your cost area, and you'll be at 7 total on field. Then, in your opponent's turn, assuming they attack, you can block with Bellamy, rest those 2, ramp 1 more, and then you'll be at 8, so you'll go into your 10 Don turn to turn off this downside a whole cycle early. And that really is one of the more reliable ways to double ramp. Obviously, you've got the Bellamy, you've got the It's to Die For. The other 3 Don ramp effects, they're very, very limited, few and far between. These really are probably the best 2. In terms of other ramp, we've got Miss Doublefinger. She's a 2k that ramps, so I think that makes some amount of sense. You've also got this Doflamingo blocker. He's a new card out of PRB2. On play, your Rampadon's rested. He's a 5-6 blocker. Simple stuff. Well, once you get to your end game and you're a 7k leader, let's try and make him even bigger. Let's be as big and obnoxious as possible. We've got brilliant card, I think, in this deck is going to be 9 cost Newgate, at least with current support. You push your leader to 9k, makes it incredibly hard for really much of anything to interact. Even things like 9 cost Sanji and 9 cost Big Mum, they only demand a 1k counter. which is kind of bonkers, you know? And at least with the current card pool that we have, before we get access to Roger's in-type cards in OP13, I think this style of, like, big leader is going to be the best way to go. And in addition to Newgate, I've also got Kid. Kid does do Don -1. However, if you've got an effect like 8-cost Katakuri, or Captain Kid, or even Black Maria on the board, you can offset that Don -1 to go back to 10 to make sure you're a 7k leader in your opponent's turn as well. And with Kid and Newgate, you can potentially become a 10k leader, which, I mean, it's a little bit of a high roll, but if you can get it off, 10k leader seems kind of cracked. I'm also playing a couple of Roger. You might not even want this card, but, you know, it's on brand, right? And I'll put a full playset of Katakuris on here. Not only can it make it so that you go from 9 to 10, if you end up on 9 Don, you can ramp one more with this to go to 10 during your opponent's turn at least, to get that extra defense with your leader effect. And on top of that, he's just a crazy card. We know how good this card is, but just to point out, it has an extra minor application in a deck like this. Black Maria is a really weird card. Obviously, if your opponent is ramping, you can match their ramp. If you're going against a blue-purple Luffy that gets some crazy ramp off, you can just match them very simply. But also, you can get some extra sort of early value out of this. If you're on, I don't know, say you're on 5 Don, right? And your opponent's also on 5 Don. They've done a ramp. Well, you can play out Black Maria, draw up to 10, and then you get to swing for 7 with your leader for the turn, which is quite nice. Of course, you'll go back down to 5, but you've got an extra 2k power out of it. Then if your opponent ramps again, maybe you'll get more value out of her. Who's to say? But it's a nice little sort of funny interaction that you can do there. Yep, this is my very early Roger list. I'm sure this is not going to be at all how the deck looks once we have the support. But like I say, this whole video, I think, it's just fun to theory craft, right? It's just fun. Next up, I want to talk about Red Blue Ace, and I think this might be, at least with current card pool, the best out of the box. So this is a 3-life 6k leader with the Whitebeard Pirates types, red and blue, and he has 2 effects. Once per turn on your opponent's attack, you can trash 1 card from your hand, give one of your opponent's leaders or characters -2 for the battle. A little bit of a shame that this isn't for the turn, so resanding characters and leaders don't have to fear as much. But being able to turn your bricks into 2Ks once per turn is going to make it so that you can be a lot more greedy with your deck building and have to worry less about including a lot of 2Ks. And Don X1, once per turn, when you receive damage or your character with 6,000 base power or more is KO'd, you get to draw a card. So multicolor leaders, and especially 3-life leaders, do rely on having extra card draw. We've seen blue-purple Luffy do that by just having an effect that says draw a card every turn. This sort of mostly says draw a card every turn. And this comes online a lot earlier than blue-purple Luffy, of course. Now, this is the first sort of 3-life leader that we've had that hasn't had ramp involved. However, the red and blue Whitebeard Pirates engine is already incredibly strong. I mean, we're going to be very, very consistent because we've got the red Izzo, that's a top 5 search, and we've got the blue Izzo, that's also a top 5 search, and also gets you a cycle as a one-off effect, which is quite nice. And we've already got some really powerful Whitebeard cards. One that comes out in PRB02 is this Marco. He's a 4/6 blocker, and on KO you draw 2. Now that combines with your leader effect to draw 3. A blocker that says draw 3 on KO, man, that's going to be so crazy for your card efficiency. And you don't even have to just treat this as a blocker. You can just swing with this, poke 6s. And when your opponent decides to deal with it, well, you get to draw 3 cards. I mean, we've seen how good the 3-cost Sanji is. And he only draws 1 card on KO. This drawing 3, I mean, this is going to be a really key piece in my opinion. We've also got access to both Atmos and Jozu. These are going to be really important for your tempo as you're getting towards your top end. If you're against an aggro deck especially, Atmos can be able to bounce cards like Karasu, Ivankov, and then Jozu hits a bit higher and can bounce things like Cavendish, which seems very relevant and also lets you reuse your searches. Another card that we can reuse quite efficiently is this Whitey Bay. This is one of our 2Ks, and when you play her, you can reveal 2 Whitebeard Pirates type cards from your hand, which you're going to have, and then your leader gets an extra 2,000 power. So this is obviously only 1,000 extra power because you're paying 1 Don for this. But if you need a card to pick back up, with either Jozu or this Odin, then Whitey Bay is surely a nice option to have. Speaking of the Odin is a brilliant option into slower decks. He can attack twice, you can pile a bunch of dons on him, and he's got that baked-in removal protection, which is lovely into anything that might try and remove him. And that's not once per turn, you can just trash cards, and we're going to be drawing a lot of cards between our leader effect, cards like Marco, and reusing these little 1 costs. Now, one card that has never really seen great success, at least while I've been playing, is Flame Emperor. But I'm pretty excited about Flame Emperor in this deck. Finally, we've got a good ace leader to make use of this. This lets you pop an 8k power unit, which is really relevant at the moment because Katakuri and Mihawk blockers are everywhere. These are some of the best cards in the game, and Flame Emperor just KOs them. Then on top of that, you get double attack and 3000 power. This is like a really, really souped up version of Divine Departure, and for what it's worth, the trigger is no joke either, popping a 6000 power character. And because we've got double searches, we only really need to play a couple of these. It's going to be very good on key turns. And if you can find this at the right time, it could be crazy. But we do need a Don on our leader, so let's try and include a few cards that help us play on curve. And the 2 that I've gone for are the 5-cost Luffy. He's a rush unit that gives your leader arrested Don every single turn. And crucially, he has exactly 6000 base power. So when he goes down, you get to draw a card. And I've also got the Yamato. This is sort of locked to Wano and Ace. This is just like a bigger version of the Luffy, right? The Yamato is 6-7 and gives you that rested on every turn. Very similar cards. This one's just a little bit bigger. We also get to play the Rush Ace. He's pretty good. You're going to have a lot of aggression with this deck. You can see you've sort of got 2 sort of different game plans that are going to mesh to give you good options in a bunch of different matchups. If you need to go on a removal route, you've got Atmos into Jozu. If you want to go on a more aggro route, you can go with Luffy into Yamato into Ace, something like that. And then at the top end, I'm playing one of my favourite cards again. 9 costs Newgate's back. He buffs you up to 8, which just gives you so much defense. And it's like mega searchable. You might not even need to run 4 of these in this deck because you have the double searches that you're going to be reusing with your Jozu and your Odin. But this can come down on a crucial turn and really just change the battle. Last cards in this deck, I've got a couple of Nami just to help you with filtering if you are really bricking up on bricks. Yes, you've got your leader effect to help with that, but a Nami on a key turn could help you with some cycle. And I've also got 2 copies of Shiraya, so if we are seeing the sort of meta that I'm expecting, where everyone's leader's getting bigger. I mean, look, we've got Ace is a really big leader, Blue-Purple Luffy's big, Purple-Black Luffy's big, Roger's going to be enormous. Shiraya, when he attacks, just becomes the same power as their leader, which is going to be, I think, more relevant than some people might think. This card is not only a defensive tool, this is an offensive threat, because when attacking, he keeps that power until the start of your next turn. So if you attack into a Blue-Purple Luffy for 6-on-6, well, he stays at 6k in the Blue-Purple Luffy player's turn. So that makes him quite difficult for them to deal with. And I really do think we could see Shiraya creep into a bunch of different decks. May not pan out, but I'm kind of excited to give him a go at least. So that's my initial build of Ace. Like I say, pretty low on the 2Ks, just got the Whitey Bays and some of these vanilla Newgates, because our leader effect should in theory let us be very greedy with 2Ks. But there's going to be a bunch more cards that you can include in this. This one especially was quite hard to narrow down, whilst I was sort of struggling to find cards to put into Roger. Ace has so many brilliant options, and I'm sure you're going to list some of them in the comments. I did list a few on my community post earlier today, but if you've got any really cool ideas, let me know. Red Black Sabo is another incredibly unique leader from this set. So this leader is a 5-life red and black 5k power unit with the Dressrosa and Revolutionary Army types. We've only really seen one of these 5-life dual color leaders that can attack before. That was Red Purple Kid. He had a debuff where he was 1000 smaller only in your turn. Sabo, if you have 4 or more life, this leader has 1000 power less in both your turn and your opponent's turn. So that is more of a debuff than Kid had. However, he also has a really nuts second effect. Don X1, if you have an 8 cost or greater character, all your characters and your leader gain 1000 power. So once this is online, this is like a red Zoro effect and a red-green smokers effect, and you become a 6k leader. This effect is really insane. The amount of value you get out of this is mega. And because of the black Rev Army cards that we got in OP12, for example, like this hack, you can cheat out 8 costs on your 4 Don turn. So as soon as 5 Don or 4 Don, if you have one of these koalas that gives you arrested Don on the board, you can sort of negate your downside by going back to 5, and all of your characters get bigger. And that includes blockers on your opponent's turn. So this hack blocker is a 4/6, which is brilliant. This deck is going to have so many resources, and the existing Rev Army cards are already very solid. The black Rev Army cards that we got in OP12 really do help with this effect, where you have to have an 8 cost. Not only do we have Hack, we have Morley, who's an 8 cost 2k, and we have Lindbergh, who's an 8 cost with a very mid effect. But getting these guys down as soon as 5, gonna make you just that much more tanky. Also, we've got Karasu, he's an 8 cost, that in your opponent's turn, if they want to deal with this is going to be at 7k power. So this is going to constantly be scamming cards and be quite difficult for your opponent to deal with. We're also going to be incredibly consistent with a deck like this. Not only do we have the Koala Searcher, we also have some searchers that I'm not even including. We've got the 1-cost Bellow Betty Searcher. There's also the Captain's Assemble event. But what I've gone for instead is the stage. You see how good these stages are in decks like Blackbeard and Reiju. Being able to trash exactly what you need for your dragon is going to make him very, very reliable. And getting constant searches for exactly what you need, trashing your bricks, grabbing 2Ks, is going to make this deck just way more consistent. We also have access to all the red cards, of course. Karasu is a brilliant card, especially into big leaders. You can take them down a peg or two. And whilst this guy does need 7,000 power to get the when attacking effect, your leader effect is going to provide half of that. So you only have to put 1 Don on this Karasu to get that minus 1,000 power on your opponent's leader. You've also got Ivankov, who is a brilliant summon off of Black Dragon. Black Dragon can summon the Ivankov from the trash, and then the Ivankov can summon any of these 4/5s from the top of your deck. Of course, it's a little bit of gamba, but you've got a good amount of decent targets here. All 4 of these you'd be pretty happy to hit. Koala, the 2k, could help with a bit of reduction. And even the Searcher and the Don Koala, certainly not bad cards. And then to close off the game, you've got Dragon if you need a bit of rush. And this is going to be crazy because this pays for your leader's Don X1. Meaning that just off this Dragon alone, you're swinging for 810. 810 for 8 Don, that's pretty good, right? That's a really good card. And then all of your other characters get an extra 1,000 power as well. Remember, this is just like Red Zoro. But even better. I really think this leader is potentially a little underlooked. And I'm really excited to see what other Rev Army cards we get in this set. Last card on the deck, I've got a couple of Stussies. We do play quite a lot of 1-costs, even more if you want to include the Bellow Betty Searcher over the Rev Army HQ. And Stussi being able to deal with some of the bigger cards in the format, I think is going to be pretty good. I tried this in the Koala leader back when I was playing that, and it felt very strong. So I think Sabo could make pretty good use of Stussi as well. But that's my initial list of Sabo. Let me know, what are you doing differently? Are you including more searchers? Less searchers? I think this is honestly one of the leaders that I'm most excited for from this set. I think the mesh of red and black Rev Army is really cool. And this is so much more exciting than the old red-black Sabo leader. I think one of the harder decks to build right now is Bonney. So this is a 5 life mono yellow 5k leader. Your turn once per turn, when you play a character with a trigger, you can give up to one of your characters or leaders 2 rested Don. And this is an egghead type leader, not supernovas, so all the yellow supernova lock cards are out the window. It's like they're pushing you towards an egghead package, but so many of the scientist type characters that you're used to seeing in Vegapunk, like for example this Lilith, have the trigger where your leader has to be specifically Vegapunk. So that means that the scientist package, I think, is going to be significantly weaker. Because whilst you can still play those cards and get their effects, not being able to trigger them out is going to be a real shame. That is half the benefit of those cards. But I did still want to make an egghead themed deck, because once we get the cards from the set, and also there's an egghead Luffy themed starter deck coming after this set, so I really do think they're going to push this towards an egghead theme. So I figured let's see what we can do with the existing egghead card pool. And I think some of these cards really do have merit. Of course, you've got Lilith, who with this leader effect is effectively a 1/5 because 2 of those don't go on your leader, so you get to swing for 7. And of course, this is a Searcher, which is a great stat line. You've got the old Bonney. This Bonney's not seen a great deal of play, but when you get 2 of those Dons back immediately with your leader effect, and getting that extra draw, that could really come in clutch. In terms of other egghead cards, I've got 4 of the Frankie. You know him, he's just a good 2k. I've also got 4 of the Usopp, who has a very funny trigger to buff you to 7k on defense, which is quite amusing. There's this S-Hawk, who is a card that's seen very little play. However, if you have less life, he can't be KO'd in battle by slash cards and gets bigger. So this is like a skeleton key for the Green Zoro matchup, because all their dudes are slash. And honestly, the slash package is creeping its way into more and more green decks. Bonney's playing a lot more slash cards. Red-green Smoker's playing a lot more slash cards. So this S-Hawk could become a bit of an unkillable beast more often than you think. And I mean, like a guy that's swinging for 8k every turn that your opponent can't get rid of, that's kind of tough. You do have to beware, though, that your life needs to be lower. You also get access to the Nami, of course, being able to play this and then get 2 of those Dons back and remove a 5, things like Cavendish, things like Tashigi, 5-cost Smoker, 5-cost Sanji and Pudding. There's a lot of 5s, and this is pretty relevant. And where we're sort of based around triggers anyway, you're always going to have a trigger to trash. We've also got these 2 cards, the S-Snake and the Boa, which are very similar, which I suppose is on brand. The S-Snake is Egghead, the Boa is not. So the S-Snake, on play, just one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 6 or less, other than Luffy, can't attack until the end of your opponent's next turn. It's going to buy you out of a hit, which it's not the greatest because it is capped at that 6 or less cost. So big cards like 9-cost Sanji or 9-cost Newgate are going to laugh at your S-Snake. But if you're playing against a mid-range deck, this is going to be very valuable. Also, the Boa has a very similar effect where you can trash a trigger card, and then one of your opponent's rested characters, or leaders this time, other than Luffy, can't attack. So this does rely on the character being rested to freeze them. However, this can hit any cost. And this also being able to hit leaders is, again, especially relevant into the Green Zoro matchup. That deck is so reliant on their leader being able to swing. And we've seen with cards like the 4-cost Arlong in Zonji, how powerful that can be to deny the leader from attacking. And this Boa is much the same. Yes, it costs you a card, but it's got a great stat line. You're going to get 2 of those Dons back with your leader effect. And this can potentially be a game-winning play. I'm also playing Kuma because why not? But there are a few cards in this deck that have some pretty interesting interactions with this effect. Onami costs 2 and gives Banish. Well, because you get those 2 Don back, this is effectively like a free Banish, right? You just get to give your leader Banish and swing for 7. That certainly seems quite compelling. You also have Otama, who can come down for 2, give you back those 2 rested Dons. And then every turn you can take a life and give your leader 3,000 more power. So off just this Otama, you can be swinging for 10. That's not too bad in my book. And this can also help you with maybe an effect like S-Hawk, where you need to be low on life, or maybe Otama can take one here and there. The last couple of cards I've got in this list are just some value plays. You've got Sanji, he effectively becomes a 2-5 blocker because you get 2 of the Dons back. And Kikunojo is much the same, except your opponent really doesn't want to get rid of this Kikunojo. Similar to how they don't want to get rid of Kuma. And if you can build this board where you're freezing some of their dudes, they don't want to kill some of your dudes, they can't kill the S-Hawk, you could create some pretty interesting board states with a deck like this. And I do think this one is going to get a significant amount of buffs in the set. Like, a deck like this would not be that good right now, but I just thought it would be interesting to sort of discuss how even the existing Egghead cards are quite promising for this body. Now, Red-Green Luffy is an especially versatile one, so for this leader, I've actually got 2 builds. Firstly, I'm going to be going over a Supernova build, and then after that, I've got more of a Straw Hat Crew focused build. So this Luffy is red-green, 4 life, 5k, nothing funky unlike the rest of the leaders. Don X1 on your opponent's attack. If you have 5 or less active Don on the field, you can rest any number of your active Don. Then one of your leader or Straw Hat Crew type characters will gain 2,000 power for each Don that was rested by that effect. So effectively, you leave like 3 Don up, that's 6k counter that you can use to defend your leader or your Straw Hat Crew type characters. Now, that distinction that the characters have to be Straw Hat Crew makes this a little bit more tricky to build, because there are so many really good Supernovas that have great Don restand effects that would naturally synergize with this leader's effect, but you can't defend them with the leader's effect, so it's a bit weird. But this is the Supernova build that I've got at the minute. You've got Classic, you've got Bonney, Searcher, but this Kid and Killer, this one's even better in this deck, right? Because it has that on your opponent's attack, You can trash him, restand a Don. Well, that Don's now a 2k, so this letting you sort of like weasel around your Bonney's leader effect was really good. But this just giving you an extra 2k is insane. Really, this is why I wanted to build a Supernova build of this deck, is really just this card. This card is cracked. We've also got, in terms of the Supernovas with really good effects, you've got the Basil Hawkins and the Arouge that both restand 1 Don at the end of your turn. Again, giving you a 2k counter. And of course, we wouldn't be a Supernova deck without playing Cavendish. I mean, restanding 2 Don is effectively like 4k counter if you just leave them up. So that's pretty good. You've also got the new Bonney blocker, who can draw 2 trash 1 and then restand a Don. And for further restand, we've got Mihawk. This guy restands 4. So this sort of Supernova build, but where this comes in difficult is you're not going to be able to use this Don to defend your Cavendish, to defend your... But where this comes in a little bit tricky is you can't use this Don to defend your Cavendish, to defend your Bonney, to defend your Mihawk. So you can only really use it to defend Straw Hat Crew type characters. So I think it's important to have some of our more impactful attackers be Straw Hat Crew. And that's why I've got the Rush Luffy from Starter Deck 21, and also the Rush Deck Luffy from Starter Deck 1. Now, this guy's a Supernova, this guy isn't. So you can't search for this guy, but you can search for this guy. So it's a little weird, but your opponents really want to take out these dudes. So I mean, this guy just gives you the Don for your leader effect every turn. And this guy being unblockable is going to give you some interesting lines. So your opponent is going to want to take these out, and then you can use your Don that you restood with your green cards to maybe defend these. I've also got the Chopper blocker because he's just a 6k blocker, and he is Straw Hat Crew, so you can defend him with your leader effect. And lastly, there's one really cool card. There's actually a couple. I'm going to pull up the other ones. You can play both Repel, which is a 2 Don 4k counter that then restands 1 Don. So it's effectively a 2 Don 6k counter. And you've also got Scalpel, which is a 1 Don 2k counter that restands a Don. So it's like a 1 Don 4k counter. And yes, that's not that much better than Rad Beam, but being able to split up those 2ks could come in clutch in certain situations. If you also really want to go all in on this type of effect, you've also got Charleston. This is a 2 Don 4k counter event that then you can trash 1 card to restand 3 Dons. And I've seen some people cooking with this. I'm not sold on it myself because it's not searchable, but it's certainly a very reasonable card. And when your opponent's going for game, being able to do this to trash a brick and then have 6k more counter could be an insano high roll like play. And here, as promised, is my film version of Red Green Luffy. So the red and the green film cards, they're not a ton of overlap, but there are a select few red film cards that work really well with the green film engine from way back in set 2. So if you're not familiar with the green film, you've got this big 7/7 Luffy. He's a blocker who plays a 4-cost film or Straw Hat Crew. This was always in the past just playing Brook, who's a 4-cost that plays a 3-cost film or Straw Hat Crew. And then that one would play the Nami, who on play and when attacking you could tap 1 to do a top 3 search for film. This combo is classic. It was really good all the way back in the day. I believe in Green Kid. But this was also very, very good in the Uta deck, the green Uta deck. But being red-green means you get to play Shariah off of Brook. And if you listen to the whole of this video, you'll know that I think I'm pretty hot on Shariah at the minute, with all these leaders aiming to become as big as possible. Shariah just being able to attack into them, demand a 1k for just 3 cost, and also being able to just alternatively be a massive blocker when they attack with their leader. I don't know, seems pretty good to me. And whilst do know you can't obviously defend this guy with your leader's effect, if all you have to give is a 1k, that's really not too bad. You also gain access to the 3-cost Sanji to be able to play off your Brook, because he can play Straw Hat Crew type cards. And whilst you can't search this with Nami, it's just a very efficient card, and it will draw a card when it goes down to increase your card efficiency. The one other cool addition we've had to this sort of Straw Hat Crew film engine, I think, is the Green Zoro. He can rest some key targets and attack into them. Things like chump blockers he's brilliant at dealing with. 4-cost Kuzans, even just if there's another 4-cost like a Kuina that you want to threaten immediately. And the fact that you can play this off Luffy is a nice little bonus. And because we're playing the Film Searcher, we get incredible searchable access to the big shanks. We've seen how good this card is in a defensive deck like Bonney, and I see no reason why this deck can't be nearly as defensive as Bonney. If you can stack a Cavendish on the board, play a Shanks, attack with Cavendish, you're going to have at least 2 Don open for your leader effect, which is just kind of really strong. Of course, I've still got Hody and Mihawk because, well, we're green, so we may as well play them. And this Uta, I think, that from the Shanks deck is a pretty interesting option because you can play this for just 2 cost once you've got a Shanks on the board, or if you put some Dons on a Hody or a Mihawk, something like that. And it being a searchable 2k off of Nami, I think this is... I'm interested to see if this has greater prominence as time goes on, because I think this card is generically good. It's just maybe not so incredible in Shanks as people might have hoped. This is a proxy for this card that's not in the Kadi Kaizoku deck builder yet. This is the Gum Gum Gatling Gun. This is a new card out of OP13. You can give 1 rested Don to one of your Luffys, so that's the Don that you paid for this. Then you give something -2. So this effectively is a free -2. Yes, it costs you a card, but you get the Don back at least. And this could be pretty important for dealing with certain board threats. This may well not make the cut, but I think it's an interesting card to give a go at least. So let me know, what do you think is going to be better? Do you think the Supernovas build is going to be better? Do you think a film build could be the way? Or have you got a pure Straw Hat build that's going to make waves? And given that this guy is the only green leader so far, I'm expecting more green Straw Hat support, which could very well make this Luffy and this Brook even more compelling if they have the right costs. So early thoughts, I think all 5 of these leaders are going to be pretty exciting. All of them feel fairly unique, maybe with the exception of Bonney. But we've seen some of the generic leaders that people write off be the best out of sets in the past. I mean, look at Shanks. Shanks, very bland effect, not exciting, but was really, really good in set 9. Maybe not so much anymore, but we don't talk about that. So, you know, I've got really good hope for all 5 of these leaders. Currently, I think the one that I'm most excited for is probably the Ace, just because we've seen so many cards for him already. Roger, I think, if his support is good, this guy could be insane. You're a 7k leader with 1 million resources, it's going to be nuts. And I think Sabo is potentially the most overlooked right now. I've seen a lot of people poo-pooing this guy because of that -1000 power, which, don't get me wrong, it's debilitating. But if you just imagine this guy as a 3/6 leader that gets 2 extra cards at the start of the game, suddenly it doesn't look so bad, right? And that Don X1 effect, that's so much power in one effect. 1000 power in your turn, 1000 power to all your characters in your turn, so you swing bigger, and 1000 power to all your characters in your opponent's turn, so you've got extra defense. Don't overlook how crazy this could be. I'm really excited to give a go of all of these, and I've been considering doing some webcam or IRL testing with these leaders early, like some of the Japanese channels do. If you think that'd be something you would be interested in, let me know in the comments below. But with that said, thank you for watching. Drink of the day is nothing because I haven't got one. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a lovely rest of your day.